Imagine standing on the edge of a massive concrete wall stretching across the Columbia River in central Washington. The wind moves across the water below, and the sound you hear is not chaos, not roaring destruction, but controlled power. Beneath your feet, thousands of tons of concrete press downward with silent force. Behind that wall, an enormous reservoir stretches into the distance. In front of it, water surges through turbines that spin day and night, converting motion into electricity. This is the story of Chief Joseph Dam, one of the largest hydroelectric power producers in the United States, and one of the least publicly discussed engineering giants of the 20th century. Long before concrete reshaped this section of the Columbia River, the landscape was defined by rhythm and movement. The Columbia flowed freely, fed by snowmelt from distant mountains. Seasonal floods carved the canyon walls. Salmon migrated upstream in vast numbers, sustaining ecosystems and native communities for thousands of years. The river was not merely water moving through terrain. It was a lifeline. Indigenous tribes, including the Nez Perce, relied on these waters for food, culture, and trade. The dam would later be named after Chief Joseph, a respected leader remembered for resilience and dignity. Yet the naming of the structure stands in contrast to the complex reality that large-scale river development permanently altered traditional fishing grounds and natural patterns that had existed for centuries. In the early decades of the 20th century, the United States entered an era of industrial expansion. Electricity was no longer a luxury, it was becoming a necessity. Cities grew taller, factories expanded. Rural electrification projects aimed to bring power to remote communities. Rivers across America were evaluated not only for beauty or navigation, but for energy potential. The Columbia River Basin quickly drew attention. Its powerful flow and steep gradients made it ideal for hydroelectric development. The successful construction of Grand Coulee Dam demonstrated what was possible when federal resources and engineering ambition combined. That project, completed in the early 1940s, provided irrigation and immense power generation, transforming agriculture and industry in the Pacific Northwest. Yet energy demand continued to rise. By the end of World War II, the United States had emerged as a global industrial leader. Factories that once produced wartime materials shifted to peacetime manufacturing. Population growth accelerated, suburbs expanded. The demand for reliable electricity became urgent. It was within this atmosphere that plans for another major dam downstream began to solidify. The idea was not to replicate Grand Coulee exactly, but to complement it. Where Grand Coulee focused heavily on irrigation as well as power, the new dam would prioritize electricity generation. Engineers studied river flow data, geological surveys, and economic projections. The chosen site near Bridgeport, Washington offered favorable bedrock foundations and river characteristics suitable for a large gravity dam. Construction officially began in 1949. The timing is significant. The Cold War had begun. Tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union shaped national priorities. Reliable domestic energy production was considered strategically important. Hydroelectric dams provided power without dependence on imported fuel. They supported aluminum production, manufacturing, and defense industries. Building large infrastructure projects was also seen as a demonstration of national strength and technological capability. The site transformed rapidly. What had been rugged canyon terrain became an enormous construction zone. Workers arrived from across the region, seeking steady employment and opportunity. Temporary facilities, equipment yards, and access roads were established. Heavy machinery reshaped the landscape. Excavation crews removed rock and earth to prepare the foundation. The bedrock had to be carefully examined to ensure it could support the weight of millions of cubic yards of concrete. A concrete gravity dam depends primarily on its mass to resist the pressure of water. Unlike arch dams, which curve and transfer force into canyon walls, a gravity dam stands firm because of sheer weight. Engineers calculated water pressure at various reservoir levels. They designed the structure with a wide base tapering upward, ensuring stability. Each block of concrete had to cure properly to prevent cracks or weaknesses. Construction progressed in sections, with careful planning to manage river diversion during the build. The Columbia River could not simply be stopped overnight. Temporary cofferdams redirected water flow away from active construction zones. Pumps and diversion channels kept areas dry enough for work to continue. Seasonal changes added complexity. Spring snowmelt increased river volume. Weather conditions affected schedules, yet progress continued steadily. By the early 1950s, the dam's massive form began to take recognizable shape. From a distance, it appeared as a rising wall of geometric precision against the natural canyon. Inside the developing powerhouse area, turbines and generators were installed. These machines were enormous. Each turbine would be driven by water rushing through intake structures at controlled speeds. The energy of falling water would rotate turbine blades connected to generators, converting mechanical motion into electrical current. In 1955, the first generating units began operating. The moment marked more than completion of construction phases. It represented the transformation of a natural river segment into a regulated energy facility. Over time, additional generating units were added. Ultimately, the dam would include 27 turbine generating units with a combined capacity exceeding 600 megawatts. To understand this scale, consider that a single megawatt can power hundreds of homes under typical conditions. At full capacity, the dam contributes electricity to vast portions of the Pacific Northwest. The creation of the reservoir behind the dam resulted in Lake Rufus Woods. The water extended upstream, reshaping shorelines and submerging former riverbanks. Today, the reservoir is associated with recreation, fishing, boating, and scenic views. However, the transition from free, flowing river to controlled reservoir altered habitats and migration routes. Fish passage systems became essential components of dam design across the Columbia Basin, though not all dams were equipped identically. Balancing energy production with ecological stewardship has remained an ongoing conversation for decades. As the dam entered full operation during the 1960s and 1970s, the Pacific Northwest continued to grow. Hydroelectric power from Columbia River dams fueled industries, supported residential development, and stabilized regional electrical grids. Unlike fossil fuel plants, hydroelectric facilities produce electricity without combustion emissions. This advantage became increasingly significant as environmental awareness expanded in later decades. Technological upgrades have periodically improved efficiency and reliability at the dam. Turbine components wear over time and require refurbishment. Electrical control systems have been modernized. Monitoring technologies now allow operators to track performance metrics in real time. Safety inspections ensure structural integrity. Although the dam's concrete mass appears static, maintaining such a facility requires constant oversight and engineering expertise. The dam's existence also represents a chapter in broader national infrastructure policy. Mid-20th century America invested heavily in public works, highways, bridges, water systems, and energy projects. These developments were seen as catalysts for economic growth and national cohesion. Hydroelectric dams, in particular, symbolize the harnessing of natural forces for collective benefit. Yet perspectives evolved over time. Environmental legislation introduced in the 1970s required greater assessment of ecological impact. Cultural considerations gained recognition. The history of river development became more nuanced. Naming the dam after Chief Joseph carries symbolic weight. Chief Joseph of the Nez Perce is remembered for his leadership during a period of profound displacement and conflict in the late 19th century. His words emphasizing peace and justice are often quoted. The juxtaposition of a modern hydroelectric facility bearing his name invites reflection on historical continuity and change. Infrastructure can honor individuals symbolically while simultaneously altering landscapes central to indigenous heritage. Understanding this duality is essential to telling a complete story. Economically, the dam has contributed to stable electricity rates in the region. Hydroelectric power, once capital costs are absorbed, offers relatively low operating expenses compared to fuel-based generation. This advantage has supported industrial competitiveness in Washington state and neighboring areas. Aluminum smelting, technology manufacturing, agriculture processing, and residential consumers have all benefited from reliable power. The dam also plays a role in grid stability. Hydroelectric facilities can adjust output relatively quickly compared to some other power sources. During periods of peak demand, water flow through turbines can be increased. During lower demand, output can be reduced. This flexibility helps balance supply and demand across interconnected electrical systems. In recent years, as wind and solar generation expanded, hydroelectric dams have provided complementary balancing capacity due to their controllable output. Structurally, the dam extends more than 8,000 feet across the river, making it one of the longest dams in the United States. Its height of approximately 236 feet may not rival the tallest dams globally, but combined with its length and generating capacity, it remains a significant engineering achievement. The spillway system allows excess water to pass safely during high-flow conditions. Operators monitor reservoir levels closely to manage flood risk while maintaining power production efficiency. Flood control, while not the primary purpose compared to other dams, still factors into operations. Coordinated management among multiple Columbia Basin dams allows for seasonal flow regulation. Water released upstream influences downstream conditions. Complex agreements and operational plans guide these decisions, balancing hydropower, environmental protection, navigation, and flood management. During its decades of service, the dam has witnessed shifts in national energy priorities. The oil crisis of the 1970s underscored the value of domestic energy sources. The rise of environmental movements prompted re-examination of large-scale river modification. Climate change discussions in the 21st century renewed appreciation for low-carbon electricity sources. Throughout these transitions, the dam continued operating steadily, largely outside mainstream public attention. The surrounding landscape today presents a contrast between engineered structure and natural terrain. Visitors see the smooth expanse of Lake Rufus Woods upstream and the regulated river channel downstream. Transmission lines extend from the powerhouse, carrying electricity across long distances. Substations distribute power into regional grids. What began as water flowing through canyon walls now becomes light in homes, energy for businesses, and support for digital infrastructure. Every large infrastructure project generates debate. Supporters emphasize economic growth, renewable energy, and job creation. Critics highlight ecological disruption and cultural impact. The history of Chief Joseph Dam contains elements of both narratives. It exemplifies mid-century engineering ambition and federal coordination. It also forms part of a broader story about river transformation in the American West. Over time, public interpretation of such projects has become more layered. Educational materials now often include discussion of indigenous perspectives and environmental consequences alongside technical achievements. A complete understanding requires acknowledging multiple viewpoints. Infrastructure does not exist in isolation. It interacts with communities, ecosystems, and historical memory. From an engineering standpoint, maintaining a concrete gravity dam over many decades requires careful monitoring of structural behavior. Engineers assess temperature variations, potential seepage, and foundation conditions. Instrumentation embedded within the dam measures internal pressures and movement. Regular inspections verify that spillway gates and mechanical systems function properly. Preventative maintenance extends lifespan and ensures safety. Hydroelectric dams like Chief Joseph also interact with regional water rights frameworks. Allocation of river flow among states, tribes, industries, and environmental needs involves legal agreements and regulatory oversight. Coordinated basin management aims to balance competing priorities. These governance structures evolved over decades and continue adapting to new challenges. Looking ahead, energy systems are undergoing transformation. Renewable sources such as wind and solar are expanding. Battery storage technologies are improving. Yet hydroelectric facilities remain foundational in many regions due to their reliability and established infrastructure. Chief Joseph Dam's ability to adjust output quickly makes it valuable in a diversified grid. Climate variability introduces additional considerations. Changes in snowpack patterns can influence river flow timing. Operators must analyze hydrological data to plan seasonal reservoir management. Long-term planning integrates scientific projections with operational flexibility. Despite its scale, the dam does not dominate popular culture the way some other landmarks do. It lacks elaborate visitor centers or widespread tourism branding. Perhaps this relative anonymity contributes to its characterization as a quiet giant. Yet in terms of megawatts generated annually, its contribution ranks among the most substantial hydroelectric facilities in the country. Standing near the base of the dam, one senses the interplay between mass and motion. Concrete stands immovable while water surges through engineered channels. Turbines spin within enclosed chambers, invisible from outside yet central to the entire system. Control rooms monitor voltage, frequency, and load distribution. Operators coordinate with regional grid managers to maintain stability. Electricity generated here travels through high-voltage transmission lines, stepping down through substations before reaching homes and businesses. The process occurs continuously, largely unnoticed by end users. When lights switch on instantly, few consider the chain of infrastructure behind that convenience. The story of Chief Joseph Dam is therefore both local and expansive. It begins with a specific river bend in Washington state. It extends into national policy, environmental history, and modern energy debates. It reflects mid-20th century optimism in large-scale engineering solutions. It also invites contemporary reflection on sustainability and cultural heritage. Every second, water from the Columbia River passes through its turbines. The river's kinetic energy transforms into electrical current. That transformation represents decades of planning, labor, and maintenance. It also represents the ongoing relationship between society and natural resources. In telling this story, it is important to maintain balance. The dam is neither purely triumph nor purely controversy. It is infrastructure, complex, consequential, and embedded within historical context. It demonstrates what coordinated engineering can accomplish. It also reminds us that altering natural systems carries lasting effects. As evening settles over the reservoir, the surface of Lake Rufus Woods reflects the fading sky. Downstream, controlled flows continue through the powerhouse. Transmission lines hum softly in the distance. The structure stands as it has for decades, weathered yet steadfast. Chief Joseph Dam remains a major contributor to renewable energy in the Pacific Northwest. It embodies the ambitions of its era and the responsibilities of the present. Its history stretches from indigenous river traditions to Cold War construction to modern grid integration, and its future will depend on how society continues to balance energy needs, environmental stewardship, and respect for cultural legacy.